All right, gentlemen, we've come to that point of the show. You know what time it is? I love how the dance it's the same but different every week. That's my favorite part. It really, really is.
I'm a little happier this week because I know EJ's compelled to do the right goddamn thing.
Kyle, look right. No,
for,
look left.
For those that typically only listen to our show on the podcast side, you should at least go to Facebook, to YouTube, to Twitch, and see Kyle's
watch the video version
when the music hits. That's the best part. But for those that are listening, this is where we do EJ's top 10, bottom 5 power rankings each and every week. EJ, start us on the bottom 5, please.
Same as last week. No changes. Bears 28, Giants 29, Commanders 30, Pats 31, Panthers 32. Nothing's
Jim,
changed.
I know this isn't college, but can we get a hit the clat, please?
And rightly so.
Good work, sir.
There you go.
So last week I had the Jets at 28, Giants 29, Commanders, Patriots, Panthers. I actually swapped the Jets and the Giants.
Okay.
Not because the Giants got that much better, but I feel like the Jets have actually gotten that much worse.
With Tim Boyle at quarterback.
No, because they released Tim Boyle and think Brett Rippon is the option.
He's an upgrade over Tim Boyle.
That's he is a son of a Super Bowl MVP, though.
Also accurate.
Cool.
Also,
so was Chris Sims. Doesn't make him good.
Also, won college football games, which Tim Boyle did not do.
I mean, yeah. My dad's an architect, and I can't draw a straight line. What the hell's your point?
That's a you problem, Jimmy.
I'm just saying, doesn't mean that having a good dad at something doesn't mean that you're good at it too.
That's true.
That's all I'm saying. But yeah, I have no issue. Those 5 teams suck. Yeah. I have no issue with the bottom 5.
Maybe the Cardinals instead of the Bears, but I'm not going to argue that.
They won this week. It's Pittsburgh, though.
Is that a brag?
The big one.
It's still Pittsburgh.
I'm not trying to be an asshole, except I am trying to be an asshole. That's not a brag.
I guess that defense, though, I mean, they look better with Kyler Murray back, though. I will say that. They look very good with Kyler Murray.
Is that a slight?
Very good.
Slight, yeah.
All right, EJ, your top 10.
All right, top 10. We got a newcomer here. The Packers, number 10. Number 9, the Texans. Number 8, the Jags. 7, Dolphins. 6, Lions. 5, Cowboys. 4, Chiefs. 3, Ravens. 2, Eagles. 1, Niners. So the Jags is interesting because, like, I don't know if Trevor's playing or not.
Yeah.
So I'm on a holding pattern at this point now. So,
yeah.
Last week I had I had Houston. No, not Houston. I had Pittsburgh and Denver last week. Remember?
You awfully dissed the Texans again. By the way, at least you didn't have them in the bottom 5 at this point, but you have rectified that error, it would seem.
Right. I got Green Bay in there for a couple of reasons. Number one, the last 2 wins, not just 2. They won 3 in a row, number 1, but the last 2 wins in Detroit and against the champs, Kansas City. Got to reward that. And their schedule moving forward. I'm also projecting them to do very well the last 5 weeks of the year, so I'm putting them number 10. Other than that, I mean, the Chiefs fell in a spot, but again, they're weird. You know, Cowboys, Eagles. I
have the Chiefs at 5. You can call me a homer, but I have the Cowboys over the Chiefs.
Homer.
Cowboys, if they win this week, obviously, we'll have a lot to say about that going forward. So a lot of these things.
Honestly, to me, the Chiefs at 5 and the Cowboys above them is more about what I still think the Chiefs are, and as opposed to what the Cowboys are.
For the record, I don't hate it, Jim. For the record, I don't hate it, but we'll see this week how they do against the Eagles on Sunday Night Football.
Otherwise, I have the Packers and the Texans flipped.
Okay.
If they played this Sunday, I would pick the Packers to win. But it would be close. I feel like, I mean, we're not allowed to do 9A and 9B, so that's why I have the Packers.
Well, it's your show. You do what you want.
No.
That's a thing. God damn it, Jim.
I had to get Kyle angry at least a little bit on the show.
See,
EJ, you need to get on his case because I want to jump in here and talk about this. Might be the best top 10 you've had in the back half of the season. The only thing a slight nitpick.
Yeah,
I don't think the Cowboys at 5 sounds wrong.
Too high, too low.
Right, they should be 4.
Slight low. No, sir. They should be below the Lions today.
Okay.
in
Okay.
my opinion. Now, granted, you do have a bit of a cluster, that 4, 5, 6. If you were left to your own devices and Jim was a horrible host, he would let you get away with 4A, 4B, and 4C for those 3 teams.
Right. He's a good host, so you won't do that to you.
As much as you complained, oh, the 10 spot is so hard in previous weeks when it wasn't, you were just shit at your job. That particular part of the bracket, incredibly difficult. Not mad at anything you did there. I love that you're not falling for the Dolphins. The limbo pick of 8 for the Jags makes a ton of sense. You have them as a technicality ahead of the Texans, which leans nicely, and they would actually beat the Packers, no matter what other Cowboy fans on this panel would say, because they're healthier than they've been all year and have a guy who's campaigning to be a possible MVP candidate, as well as a very top lock as a defensive player of the year, and wants to convince me that they're worse than the Packers. I'm not buying.
I mean, it's just when we've talked about separating where teams are, for me, putting the Packers above the Texans this week, I look at they lost to the Jags. Jags are obviously a good team. Can't fault them there. They only had the Texans only had a 5-point win over the Cardinals. They only had a 5-point win over the Broncos. Like, they're winning. It's a tight window. I just feel like the Packers are rolling a little bit better than the Texans are. It's not slighting the Texans. It's just.
But I'm telling you unintentionally it is, because you're leaving out in the first time the Texans and Jags met, they blew them the fuck out at Everbank.
Okay, I mean,
so
I'm just looking at recent trends. If I'm getting the reason why teams are starting to make their way into the bottom part of the rankings, which I like last week, maybe even the week prior, this week included, I feel like the 9 and 10 spot is a tough one, because I think there's a lot of teams that are very similar in that pocket.
I'll say this, Jim. I agree with the 50-50 thing, 9A and 9B, whatever to call that. Texas has a better record than Packers, so that's the one thing I will say.
We're not making standings. We're making a power ranking.
No, right. I'm saying if you want to do it like an edge here, why Texas ahead of the record.
Well,
but I do see a point.
I don't
think that's what you're applying, right?
Right. Yeah. Like I don't do it based on record. I do it based on feel. And like I said, if the 2 teams played this week, personally, I would pick the Packers over the Texans.
I mean, are you getting 6 points?
By the way, Miami and Dallas play like the same team, different conferences though. Like
I've said that for a while.
No quality wins, but they beat down everybody they play in the way you're supposed to. Weird. Like Washington, blow them out. Yes. Every bad team they play, they blow them out the way you're supposed to. So
the thing about the Cowboys, and where I give them kind of a pass as to why they're clearly better than a number 7 team, which the Dolphins are. I think you nailed that. And Jim, you said you had the Dolphins at 7 as well, correct?
I do, and that's more because of the Jaguars' current situation.
Fair enough. But I think the reason why you put the Cowboys clearly ahead of a Dolphins team is we've seen the Dolphins look mid against mid teams. Mm-hmm. The Cowboys, granted, the Cardinals stumble is confusing. I don't know what the shit to make of that.
There's a lot of to that point. I mean, it's a bad loss. There's no getting around
so early
that bad loss. Other good teams have bad loss. I mean, again, the Eagles lost to Zach Wilson. Like there are times where bad weeks will happen.
But I don't feel like the Cowboys play a lot of mid games like the Dolphins do, right? So the albeit in shootout style, do I feel like they kind of escaped with one against Seattle? Yes. But this is a team who I had vying for a playoff spot throughout, and they stole one. So you got to give them credit for that, and that's why I feel like the Cowboys are ahead of the Dolphins.
You know what's cool, Kyle and Jim? Well, Matt too. Also, so, you're quiet there, of course. Is that Dallas plays both Detroit and Miami in the next month?
Yeah. That's correct.
So we'll know a lot. Yeah. We'll know a lot going forward.
I think those will be fun games too, buddy.
Yes.
Yes. So I know, like Kyle, I know you said you would have the Lions above the Cowboys. So I assume that if the 2 teams played this weekend, you would pick the Lions.
I would.
Okay.
But I would, with the caveat that if the Cowboys won that, I am more than happy to take them seriously from that point moving forward.
Okay.
That's in Detroit, right?
No, that is in Dallas.
Oh.
Doesn't change my answer.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I just look at Detroit over the past month, and Not that I'm abandoning my Lions. Let me be very clear on this.
You're not wearing a Lions jersey, Jim. We're not saying anything.
I'm a little concerned about my Lions just because I've seen them give up 38 points in a 3-point victory over the Chargers, 26 points in a 5-point win over the Bears. Obviously, the loss to the Packers, which is looking not as bad as it did a couple of weeks ago. All of a sudden,
True.
and then like a kind of a dogfight a bit against the Saints. I mean, they went up 21-0 early, and it was
That's
a
the 1 seed Saints,
33-28.
though.
Good 1 seed, Jim.
1 seed Saints,
I
though.
know, I know.
You're
I all right, just keep
Shut up, Matt.
disrespecting.
Jim, let me put you here. That's a good point, but I feel like that's kind of the Lions' identity. So how do you reconcile that?
I mean, but I guess my thought there is when you're doing it against good teams, you may not be able to, start hot and hold on late when you're playing a Philly, a San Francisco, a Dallas,
A Kansas City?
I mean, they did win. They won against Kansas City. That was also, again, back in week 1. So
No Travis Kelce.
Or Chris
right, no
Jones.
Travis Kelce,
Yeah.
no Chris Jones. I get
Right.
that, but this is just, I feel like they play every team close. Like the only time we should really punish them is on the rare occasions they do get blown the fuck out, like they did by the Ravens, which is why the Ravens are 3. I can make a strong argument for the Ravens at 2, slightly punishing the Eagles just for this week for the beatdown. But
if you wanted to, I didn't personally do it. If you wanted to put Baltimore at 2 and Philly at 3, I don't think there's a problem there.
You can shake up 5 through 8, and you wouldn't be wrong. 5 through
I would
8.
include number 4 into that one. I think
I have.
I know. Again, let's find the sounder because we know your deal.
Who do you trust? Hubba, hubba, hubba. Money, money, money. Who do you trust?
Jim, to your credit though, it is lessening though. It is lessening little by little.
Yeah.
Though. I will say
And
that.
I mean, they could certainly get back on track if they get a big win over the Bills. Not that I think the Bills are that great, but I just I do, and maybe it is just Chiefs are figuring out who they are as a defensive team and an aging Travis Kelce and all of that.
Week 14. What are we doing here? Like,
I'll say this much: if it is the Buffalo on Sunday, I'm concerned.
Sure,
I'll say that.
And I mean, you should,
And rightly so.
my man.
You should absolutely be concerned if they lose to the Bill. I think you should be concerned if they, if it's a game-winning field goal game against the Bills.
I want credit for this because I sunk myself to this level to explain it to you. I acknowledge this too by saying 4A, 4B, and 4C. If it were EJ doing it, that's what we'd see. Okay. I lowered myself to that bullshit to make this point. I want EJ to acknowledge that I allowed him in the party.
I like that. I like it. But otherwise, yeah, I think the teams, the teams are fine. You want to slightly juggle a couple of spots here or there. I don't really have an issue with any of the teams in most of the plays.
Right. How far can you put the Eagles down? I mean, I know they lost big to the Niners, but how far? How many really?
All I said was swap Ravens and Eagles, dude. That's it.
Yeah, and that's and the Ravens were off this past week, I believe.
Correct.
So I guess for me that was another reasoning why I didn't had the Ravens beaten.
But the Eagles got beat that bad. I think that's fair.
They did.
With all due respect, man. I'm not trying.
What about the Niners? What about the Niners,
did,
dude?
but that was game 3 in 13 days, and they're going through this gauntlet that most people had them at 3-3, 4-2, and this is their first loss. So I think a beatdown like that was
respect when they had that same kind of action going on earlier in the year with the London games. But I hear where you're coming from.
Yeah, if we're giving grace to the Chiefs, then the Eagles definitely deserve grace also too.
I mean, the Cowboys play 3 games in 13 days every season, but whatever.
How many of them do they win, Jim? Did they go undefeated?
So far they have, or this year they did.
I know they didn't have that much. I know they had a plenty normal week when they got blasted by the 49ers. I know that shit.
They did. They did. And the 49ers are my number 1 team this week.
Man,
So.
Eagles and
rightly so.
Eagles it's gonna be fun. Can't wait for that game on Sunday night. Cannot wait.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to it. If you're talking about the NFC East, and EJ, you would also be right that this would be a must win this week for Dallas. Not a must win for the season, just for the division.
Oh yeah, definitely.
From where I
Definitely.
sit, the NFC East is looking nothing like but a speed bump here.
we are a few days from having all three teams being all 10. That plays out 10-3 Cowboys, 10-3 Eagles, 10-3 Niners. Assuming
Even
they
assimilated some NFC East players into our collective to whip that ass. That's fun.
All right, gentlemen, before we